A worrying sign for US President Donald Trump just weeks before the midterm elections. New polls show that his approval rating is falling. Now, do you approve of Donald Trump's job as US President? 36%. But in August, it was 42%. Now, that's down 6 points in a month. The president earns his best marks on economic issues, where slightly more approve than disapprove of his handling of the economy. In fact, it's more than slightly, it's 5% more, but it's still under 50%. That number hasn't really gone up, even as Americans' perception of the economy itself has. 69% of Americans at the moment now believe that the US economy is doing well. 60%. That is up 20 points from election day. Now, those are the numbers. Now, you can weigh in on what you think. CNN.com/join. I'm just getting myself ready to vote, well, one way or the other, at least see the results. CNN.com/join. It's where you and I get a chance to dialogue in a different way. First time on international television. Do you think President Trump is getting enough credit for the economy? Is this his economy? Is it Obama's economy? Is it both men's economy? So, Donald Trump's credit, not enough, about right, too much. You can see these results coming in. They are, by the way, if you are voting at the moment, you're seeing the results in real time. Absolutely in real time. So there you go. More of you have just decided to jump in on the bandwagon. We'll show you, and we'll talk about this in a moment, and we'll put the results to President Trump's former economic advisors in just a moment. 70% of you do believe he's getting too much credit. The president is very much on the ballot in the midterms, even if his name isn't actually printed there. Congressional candidates are either choosing to embrace the president and his agenda, or they're vowing to reject it at every turn. CNN's Martin Savage has been speaking to Donald Trump supporters to find out how their views on the president has changed.
Next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump became president not by winning in the big cities people know, but by winning in the places many people know little about. The America in between the big cities, middle America, the heartland. What people here call the forgotten America. Where people tell you they work hard, play by the rules, have faith in God, and rely on their neighbors. Statistically, these Americans are older, more often white, less often college graduates. The only thing globalization did for them, they'll tell you, is shut down the local factory. And as America's economy became more tech and service focused and its population more diverse and morally accepting, these Americans say they felt left behind, politically ignored, almost unwanted.
The core foundation of our country is slipping away.
I mean, it got to a point where I did not like the direction that my country was going.
Then came Donald Trump.
I love all the people of our country.
Trump, a New York City billionaire, had the remarkable ability to relate with this very dissatisfied group.
He seemed like he had the workers, the blue-collar workers, in his radar for helping them out.
They liked he was a businessman, his tough stance on immigration.
It's not that I'm opposed to people coming over, but what I want them is to come over here legally.
They liked he was pro-guns and anti-abortion rights. They liked he supported appointing conservative judges and his pledge to put America first. They loved he was not a politician, not part of what they see as the dysfunction of Washington.
Men in overalls built this country. The men in suits have destroyed it.
But he's a man in a suit.
But he has touched the working people. He stood up for the working people.
But what about now? After the Russia investigation, after the scandals, after the turmoil and turnover and all those tweets, how are these voters feeling? Satisfied, but exhausted. They see a president who has delivered on many of his promises. Tax reform, a strong economy, who ended the Paris Environmental Accord, the Iran nuclear deal, and cracked down on immigration.
I think exactly what I voted for. We wanted a little bit of a change.
They would like less turmoil. But the Russia investigation most blame on Democrats and Trump's opponents, considering the whole thing a
political witch hunt from the get-go. To be honest, it's a disgrace.
As for the two women who were paid hush money after alleged affairs, these voters say that they're willing to accept some bad in the man in exchange for the good they see in his policies. Does it bother you that if our president is not always truthful.
Not really.
They do have advice for the president.
I wish he wouldn't tweet.
They're not always fans of his tweeting, believing it distracts from his accomplishments and could suggest a president who is vindictive, compulsive, off balance. There is a sense of fatigue with the political brawling.
I think the man has a lot of capabilities, but sometimes he just lets his mouth overload sometimes, and it's very unfortunate.
Trump voters are tired of being blamed for being like Trump, simply because they voted for Trump.
I had to receive comments like, oh, I never knew you were a racist, you're anti-Islamic, you're a traitor.
Many are swing voters who voted for President Obama, not once, but twice. There's another R word that comes up a lot in our conversations: respect. Trump voters remain bothered that those who didn't vote for the president have never seemed to accept that he won. Do you think he's being treated fairly?
No. I think it's awful.
In their minds, if you don't respect he's president, then you don't respect the people who voted for him. And it was feelings of disregard and being ignored that turned them to Trump. And now, many still feel Trump was not just the right choice, but the only choice. How's he doing?
Fantastic.
Phenomenal. Better than I ever would have dreamt. I mean that sincerely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Show of hands who would vote the same.
When you put it like that, that's their view, and this is yours on the question of the credit of the economy. 75% of you who voted CNN.com/join said, that was another 74%, said he gets too much credit for the economy. Let's stay with that result. President Trump's former economic advisor, Stephen Moore, is now Distinguished Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mark Preston is our senior political analyst. Stephen Moore, too much credit. Quite all right. It's a straw poll at best, but 75% say too much. You obviously wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
Well, Richard, great to be with you, by the way. I mean, if Donald Trump doesn't get the credit, who does? You know, we always predicted when Larry Kudlow and I were working with Trump on the campaign, we predicted that we could get to 3.5 to 4% growth, that we could, you know, restore a lot of those middle-class jobs. By the way, that was an excellent segment. I liked that a lot, interviewing those folks in middle America that felt like they were ignored and their financial distress was ignored by Washington. Look, this is a extremely strong economy right now. When Obama left office, the economy was really limping. We only grew at 1.6%, Richard, in 2016. So the economy was in a downward slope. And Trump comes in, and within 18 months, we got the strongest economy in 25 years. You know, people may not like Donald Trump personally.
As an economist, Stephen, you know that it takes a while for their policies to hit effect.
Yeah, but you know what, Richard? Let me take issue with that. You know, normally that's true, but look at what happened to consumer confidence, to the stock market, to the small business and investor confidence the day after the election. It didn't take months. It didn't even take till Trump was inaugurated. You saw an instantaneous reaction from investors, business owners, and consumers knowing that a pro-business president was coming. And I think that had a big effect.
Mark Preston, if it is true, it's the economy stupid, which goes back, of course, to the Clinton presidency. But if that is the case, and if Americans are feeling better, or at least enough of them, then in these midterms, I mean, the Democrats will do well, but they could do better.
Well, the Democrats could also do a lot worse as well. You know, I think, and Stephen, you know, has hit upon this when certainly is when he was talking about Martin Savage's package just before us. We're talking about people out in middle America who don't feel that Washington has their best interests at heart. Now, having said that, you're looking at a political situation where Republicans in Washington, Republicans across the country, even allies of President Trump would rather have the president out there talking about the economy, talking about this economic engine, you know, that is moving across the country, where we're seeing unemployment at historic lows. But what we are seeing instead is President Trump continues to muddle the message every morning when he gets on Twitter. It could be about the Mueller investigation. It could be about his frustration with Republicans on Capitol Hill for another reason. But it really does come back to the Mueller administration. So, or rather investigation. Heading into the midterms right now, Richard, these are not good times for Republicans in Washington.
They're not good times for Republicans. Stephen Moore, the economics going forward. The Fed is obviously going to raise rates maybe once, maybe twice. It doesn't really matter. The trajectory is going higher, although it won't get anywhere to the levels we've seen in the past. But rates are going up. Unemployment has hit probably as low as it can go. But the trade battles, the president will not give ground on this.
No. He will not. By the way, let me address all of those points. First of all, why is the Fed raising interest rates? I don't see any signs of inflation out there. I mean, you look at the commodity index, commodities have actually been level or falling. So, you know, I'm a hard money guy. I like, you know, controls on inflation. I just don't see any inflation. I don't understand why you take the punch bowl away from the party just when it gets going, just because we're having a party. I mean, the idea that the economy can grow to by 3%, 4%, 5%, I think is very real, and it can be done in a non-inflationary way. You're also right, Richard. You touched on an important point. You know, the one big restraint we have on growth right now in the United States is there are not enough workers to fill the jobs. Yeah. And everywhere I go everywhere from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and I hear that story over and over again. We don't have the workers to fill the jobs. And if that continues to persist, some of those jobs are going to move overseas.
Mark, funny to yourself, these are extraordinary times. What's the best guessing at the moment, the consensus for what happens in the midterms? As we look forward, because night after night we'll be bringing more information to you about the midterms. So let's get a consensus view, Mark, on where things are stand at the moment.
Well, right now, if you were a betting person, you would probably put your money on the Democratic Party to take back the House of Representatives. That will have huge effects, not only politically here in the United States, but will send shockwaves around the world, because then it will put House Democrats in a position of being able to investigate the Trump administration in a way that the Trump administration has never seen. In the United States Senate, it's a very good chance Republicans are going to hold on to the United States Senate. And quite frankly, they may add a seat or two. That is the one bright spot for Republicans. But I will say this, across the country, I know we're focused on the House and the Senate. Let's look at these state legislative races and these governor's races. There's a lot of economic decisions that are being made at the state level right now. Republicans have done very well since Barack Obama, winning about 1,000 more of these state legislative seats since 2009. But I'll tell you right now, talking to analysts, they think that it's going to start turning back a little bit, and Democrats are going to start taking back some of these state houses.
One thing I can promise you, Mark, you will always...
Richard, one of the things...
Go ahead. Last word.
No, just a quick point. You know, one of the things we've learned in the last 15 or 20 years in American politics is that anger and rage are very powerful motivators for Americans to vote. We saw that with the anger and rage on the right against Obama. Now we're seeing a bit of that anger and rage on the left. And so it could be a tough cycle for Donald Trump in 2018. But don't forget, in all those cases, when people were angry at Clinton, Obama, and now Trump, remember, Clinton and Obama were both reelected.
Mark, you will always be with us to talk about the politics. Stephen, you will always be with us to have the views on economic matters on these things. Gentlemen, to both, I say thank you. The poll has closed and the results are in. If you look at the match over here, too much. The voting, Donald Trump's credit for the U.S. economy, how much should he get? You say too much by 74%. And look at the rest, way, way back with not enough. We'll have another one, another question which you'll want to join in on in just a moment, getting your views. After the break.